If you think the banking crisis is over, you better think again. What's up, everybody? Welcome aboard to Bubba's Bottom Line for Sunday, March the 19th. And what a wild week it's been in the NCAAs, and a wild week for markets as they do things that are unpredictable and unthought of. And of course, we're all witnessing another banking crisis, which is far, far from over. But I should mention that Farley Dickinson knocked off Purdue. If you don't know, it's only the second number one seed to go down and the biggest underdog in history to win in the NCAA tournament. In the meantime, as we all know about the Silicon Valley Bank that went under and the trouble with Credit Suisse and Signature, if you think those are the only banks that are in trouble, you're out of your mind. Okay, there is many, many more in trouble. As we have stated here many times on these airwaves, that the banks are over leveraged. The fractional banking laws have to be changed. But more important than that, as Ron Paul used to say, either end the Fed or at least audit the Fed. We as Americans are entitled to at least an audit because we are the ones that have to pay the bill. If you remember that what we tell you here just about every week, in government, the Federal Reserve, they don't create nothing but debt. They don't create money. They don't earn anything. They create debt that we, the taxpayers, have to pay for. So if you think that this banking crisis is over, if you think there's the only three banks that are over leveraged, you're out of your mind. You have to understand that this is an epidemic or pandemic proportions right now, and we're just starting to hear about a few. And when regulators and when officers and government officials come out and tell you that they're in solid, great shape, remember that in 2008, Paulson came out in September before the final meltdown. In 1929, Andrew Mellon came out and said that everything was fine. When they tell you everything is fine, it's the same as a coach getting the vote of confidence from the owner, okay? And they usually get fired within a couple of days. This is far from over, and it may not appear this week or next week, but you can bet there's a lot more banks in trouble. And I would venture to say out of the seven major banks, a third of them are in trouble because we don't do a good job at auditing the banks. We don't do a good job at taking care of it. And because banks have special accounting procedures that actually turn liabilities into assets, they're even getting further over leveraged. So this is going to be a problem. And this is what we continue to ignore. I don't understand why Americans continue to ignore these problems, but they do. Okay, but of course we're more concerned, okay, about changing the rules of a recession. Not that this banking crisis hangs over the economy and hangs over creating the recession, which we are in a recession. Whether you want to believe it or not, we're in a recession today, despite the fact that they changed the rules of what a recession is. Okay, we are in a recession. And again, I urge you just to check out your own spending, your own information, and tell me, okay? I mean, First Republic shares continue to slide despite they got a $30 billion cash infusion, and they continue to fall, okay? U.S. leading economic indicators down for the 11th month in a row, okay? So all that doesn't sound like we're solving the problem. It sounds to me is that the United States is trying to do what never has worked in the past and trying to fail again at the ability to try to borrow your way out of debt. Now, many of you at home have tried this with your credit cards, trying to borrow enough money, knowing that you'd get out and hope, and you dig a deeper hole. You cannot do this. This is where the problem lies, okay? But more importantly now, of course, our great President Biden says that we have to demand clawback civil penalties and ban on failed bank execs. Well, wouldn't it be simpler, President Biden, to solve the problem first and change the regulations not to allow this to happen? Wouldn't it make sense to audit these banks properly, like you and I get audited, like every business in the world gets audited? Wouldn't it make sense to have real accountants in there? Okay, not these phony pieces of shit that don't do the job correctly, but wouldn't it make sense to put in a real forensic auditing team to make sure that the lending that's being done is done with money which is there? Because again, if you forget the example, banks borrow money on the overnight rate from the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve lends them the money, which is a liability, but because of accounting practices, they can turn that liability into an asset and then lend out 10 times of what they borrowed. Okay, so creating the risk. And unfortunately, it's not the risk to the banks because the banks are too big to fail. So who gets the tab? Who gets the bailout? You and me, the American taxpayer. Okay. But of course, in this country, we're more worried about gas furnaces and gas water heaters, which will be banned in right now, I guess, in San Francisco, start banning within the next 5 years, gas furnaces and gas stoves and water heaters. I mean, are we lost our minds? Is this like, are we in the Looney Tunes? Is this Bugs Bunny and Friends here now that we're worried about this? Again, remember, I've asked you many times, at what cost do you want to destroy this country? You are not prepared to do anything. You have nothing to replace them. Okay, you have no power grid that works properly on the scale that it needs to work at. Okay, but let's by all means, another beauty out of San Francisco. Let's by all means give $5 million per person in reparations. Okay, to people that weren't affected by what happened, to people that weren't around what happened, but yet let's give them $5 million. I mean, this is, you want to talk about losing your mind. These people should go see more than a shrink, okay, because they got big problems to want to make that. But of course, who's going to pay that, right? See, this is where you have to always remember the big shots in the politicians in their offices can make these big bills. Why? Because they don't pay them. They take raises. They don't pay the extra reparations. If the reparations are given, they're going to be paid by, oh, shocking, the taxpayer. So if you remember what we went to the Revolutionary War, taxation without representation, you're seeing this continuing to happen. And of course, as we continue to hear this bullshit coming out of the rhetoric from President Biden and how many problems Russia has, well, let's just know this. Russia held a record $105 billion in cash in the month of February. So I guess they're really struggling. I guess the sanctions have really put them in deep trouble. Okay. Look, we have a mess. Okay. We have a government that's full of haters that is trying to turn this into the Great Reset. You have issues that are everywhere, and not one bill has been passed that has been to the benefit of the citizens of the United States of America. Okay. And if you're a believer in this country, okay, which I am, then you have to do something about it. Okay. You cannot continue to sit back on your lazy ass and let them continue to destroy your freedom, destroy this country. Okay. With the policies and with the haters, especially the squad, is doing. We're seeing education of our citizens diminish, or already a lousy educational system. Okay. And yet we continue to let it happen. I think that what you're seeing is criminal. I think a lot of it is treasonous, and it is really, in my opinion, with the intent of destroying this country. Okay. Because this country was the safe haven for everybody to come to. This was the place that you came to for opportunity. It actually says the land of opportunity. Okay. The government is supposed to be by the people, for the people, not the politicians stealing from the people. This is Bubba's Bottom Line. It is Sunday, March the 19th. We're going to stop out here for a break. We'll be back with our market report right after the break. Bubba's Bottom Line, Sunday, March the 19th. Well, kids, anyways, as you know, I always tell you about the brokers that I use, and I do have many brokers, but of course there are two that I have selected for you, that I've vetted, that I use myself, and that are of great benefit to you for many, many reasons. And of course, Capital Trading Group is one. They do all of our letter of direction trading. They are partners with us on the Day Trader's Dream. They've got the greatest customer service. You call, they pick up the phone. I don't know what more you could ask for, but check them out. info.capitaltradinggroup.com/Bubba. That's info.capitaltradinggroup.com/Bubba. You can check them out. It doesn't cost you anything. And of course, trader brokerage for options and equities. All I can tell you is this. I say $10 a month. Okay. It saves me $100,000 a year. Okay. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd rather have the $100,000 than give it to some broker who is going to, abuse me versus going to a place that has great service that gives me the ability to auto trade our equity portfolios if I choose to at no additional cost. Okay, lets me hedge automatically if I want, which I have to pay the licensing fee for $10 a month. Okay, check them out. Trytrader.com/Bubba. That's try.trader.com/Bubba. And of course, our high school program is scrolling on the bottom, which again, as I talked about education, is slipping away quickly because we can't get the teachers to teach. That's a story for another day. In the meantime, the links on the side for Trader and for Capital Trading Group are on the bottom for the high school program. In the meantime, let's get back to Bubba's Bottom Line and, of course, our weekly market update. Welcome back. This is Bubba's Bottom Line. It is Sunday, March the 19th, and of course, markets last week had an up week. Last week looked like they were breaking down. This week they started to run back again. In the meantime, what do you really have? You have a market that is in consolidation. You have a market that doesn't want to go anywhere, okay, that continues to churn back and forth. And, you have the Fed coming out this week. Is there expectation that maybe they're going to slow the pace of hiking rates? Is there a chance they're going to cut? I'm assuming that is what they're guessing right now, that either they're not going to hike or they're going to actually maybe start to cut again because of the troubles in the industry. We'll see. I think that the markets are getting ready to break down. But again, we are still short, except for the NASDAQ. But I would suspect that this does not look good. This looks like a patient getting ready to drop because this is not a healthy environment that we're in. In the meantime, as we look at the four major indexes, they were up across the board pretty much during the week, some better than others. And of course, obviously, the NASDAQ, which triggered a reversal, we are long the NASDAQ and of course short the other three still. The dollar, although we don't trade anymore, we would be short the dollar. But again, it doesn't make sense to trade it based on what we'd have to pay to trade it based on having to use the other exchanges. The industry is changing in many ways. So in the meantime, we would be short the dollar, though, for those of you who may trade it. The euro currency, we're long and remain so. And of course, it's mind-boggling that the euro currency can continue to go higher with the troubles. But hey, that's what makes markets. Bitcoin continues to charge up around 27,000 now. And as we told you when it was 20, probably a good stab to take a shot at it. Certainly give you a chance to do something. But again, we're a believer. I wouldn't put my life savings in it, but certainly I'm invested. We are long the futures board. And of course, bonds and notes continue to charge higher, which is illogical based on what we expect interest rates to do. But again, that's where the rub meets. And again, that's what the markets are trying to interpret, which is why you're seeing a lot of the action you see. But they exploded higher this week for the most part. Gold and silver took off and charged to the upside, which is not a surprise. We have thought that gold was going to make a new high this year and silver would get into the 30s. The sell-off wasn't a surprise, as when it happened, we explained to you, what we expected, why it was probably selling off, and it got a little bit too carried away. Too many people chased it up, but we'll see. Copper, we remained short and was down for the week. Platinum, which we don't trade, but I own it and I would trade it, individually, but it's not liquid enough for the group. Again, it got up to 1,000 and kind of failed. It's around 970, but I think platinum will probably see 1,500 this year. And I think you're in pretty good shape. And as I said, copper, we're short still. In the grain markets, corn, we're going to switch. We're going to rotate the long beans. We're going to rotate back to short. We are still long wheat. It's a very interesting thing that's going on here. The retail price of grains, that are products that use grains, is exploding higher. But yet the farmers' prices keep falling. Their inputs keep rising, which is not a good mix, right? When your costs are going to overtake your cost of production, especially if you're farming in a very high-risk business, lucrative when things are good, but very risky because, you got to count on a lot of things to get from, March to November. We'll see. Again, I think that this is partially conspiracy theory, partially some pressure either by government or by people like Bill Gates that are trying to accumulate farmland because, of course, if you control the food supply, it's more important than money. We'll see. But in the meantime, I do think they're going to go higher. I think this will overcome. But right now, we're going to be long wheat, long corn, and short beans. In the livestock markets, there's a 50-year shortage in cattle, and cattle continues to slip higher. It's getting near fat cattle or live cattle is getting near all-time highs. Feeders are still up there. They're in the twos, which is 246. I think was the all-time high. So again, as long as oil is going down, which it is right now, we'll get to that shortly. I think that steak will go higher, or beef. And if oil starts to rally again, I think they'll go to the hogs. The hogs have been under a lot of pressure. And even out to the curve, when we look out further into time, usually, the separation is usually a little bit wider going out into the summer, and it's not. It's still up, but it doesn't look as good as it did last week, and we would still be short hogs. In the softs, cocoa, we're going to reverse to long tonight or tomorrow. Cotton, we're short, which just keeps getting pelted. Sugar is short, and OJ we're still long, and coffee we're short. And again, at the end of the day, okay, I think that commodities are going to have a big market, but again, it's a real struggle right in here. I think that you have to be very patient, very diligent as you're trading right now, because the markets have been extremely challenging. You get these quick reversal patterns that are so fast, there's nothing you can do about it. If you happen to be on the wrong side, or you happen to be trying to play something, you kind of get trapped. And I think my advice to all of you is to sit back, relax, and wait, and be very patient and pick your spots. Okay, you got a big week for data this week with the FOMC. Who knows what they're going to do? So just be careful. Okay, and we'll see. I mean, we still believe that we're going much lower, but for now, they're still just in consolidation. In the meantime, this is Bubba's Bottom Line. It is Sunday, March 19th. We're going to step out here for our final break and come back with our commentary and, of course, our NCAA picks. Well, kids, I won't go through the whole pitch, but on the side, trade your brokerage, the best brokerage for equities and options. Capital Trading Group, the best and our partner in futures and commodities. But trust me, again, I use them both. Again, I have other brokers, but those are my primary. Why? Because they do the best job and they're the most economical for me. And of course, our high school program. So check them out and see what's going on. In the meantime, let's get back to Bubba's Bottom Line and, of course, my commentary. Welcome back. It is Bubba's Bottom Line. Todd Bubba Horwitz with you. And, of course, every week I give you a little commentary. And, of course, every week we've had, information. And is in regards to President Trump, they're trying to arrest him again. In regards to President Biden, which, again, this is where the rub comes in. They have now proven that he and his family were taking money from China and other places around the globe, and yet we hear nothing. We hear nothing about Hunter Biden, and I'm wondering about the double standard that we live by, and I'm wondering, again, whether you be liberal or you be conservative. I think that the separation between the two has gotten so wide, and we've forgotten what the real issues are. The real issues is who is representing our country, and more importantly, who is taking care of us. And I think that, most, a lot of the politicians, the lobbyists, they have all these special side deals in which people get paid off on. And that when there's a payoff, it's never good for you and me. And again, as a tax-paying American, I think you need to think about that the next time you go to the voting booth and who you vote for. Again, I'm not saying either party is any better, because I think that they're both equally problematic when it comes to these things. But I want to know why we have not heard about the President Biden and his payoffs. So everybody knew about it. I mean, how does a couple of Jill and Joe Biden make $6 million but yet worth over $100 million? Doesn't make a lot of logical sense. And I think we need to do something about it. I think that we need to quit worrying about Donald Trump. He's not the president. Okay. You tried to impeach him twice. I think it's a bunch of horseshit, and I'm sick and tired of spending our tax dollars trying to prosecute President Trump when you've got one of the biggest crooks in the world in the White House today. In the meantime, if you are an NCAA fan and you would like my selections for today, we do like Marquette laying 2. We do like Kentucky laying 2. Okay, and we do like Baylor laying 1, and we do like that is who we like. That is our selections for today. Let's see what happens. Let's see if the upsets continue. And to all of you, have a great weekend. Thanks as always, and we'll see you back here tomorrow with Bubba's Update.